right, guys, before we get rolling today, want to let you know that you can bolt up your experience just in time for the big game with $10 off your first 3 months of YouTube TV. You get access to 85 plus TV channels, unlimited DVR space, and game day features like Key Plays. Just be sure to record the game and then use the Key Plays view right in the YouTube TV app. Catch up on all the highlights you may have missed. Plus, you can cancel at any time. No hidden fees. That's a touchdown. YouTube TV, try 2 weeks free. Terms apply. Cancel anytime. What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new edition of Chargers Weekly. As always, joined by Matt Money Smith. And remember last week when I said we were going on a hiatus? Our friends at YouTube TV said, no, man, we need Chargers Weekly back during a critical time of the draft evaluation process, free agency, and everything else going on in the world of the NFL right now. And Money, we have so much to talk about. I guess we could just start with, you could be like the 1 millionth person to say it was the best weekend of football ever last weekend as we head into championship weekend.
No doubt. Look, you have 4 games that end on scoring plays. That is the first time I can remember it having happened. And each one seemed to progressively get better than the one before it. That's what was so remarkable, right? The fact that the Rams are as Sunday starts, it's like, well, we had these 2 great games yesterday. I guess, just be happy with that. 2 field goals to walk-off field goals to win games. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's no longer 27-3. Here's Tom Brady, going out on a shield, taking one last swing. So that becomes an unbelievable game. The Matthew Stafford hits Cooper Kupp for that long completion on a busted coverage to get the win. And then arguably, it's in the conversation. I know I'm a prisoner of the moment, perhaps, but of one of the greatest football games, if not the greatest football game I've ever seen, the Bills and the Chiefs game, because it was not just the fourth quarter. It was back and forth the entire game. When the Chiefs went up 9, you were like, oh boy, here we go. They had to punt on that 3 and out, and now the Chiefs are going to pour it on. And Josh Allen takes one play, 75 yards to make it a 2-point game once again. It was incredible. And I know the bitter sting of not making the tournament is likely still there for many Chargers fans, but I hope they were able to enjoy the weekend as much as I was.
I think so. And you look at both matchups on Sunday, it's almost like, okay, preseason, Chargers had the Niners at Jack Hammett Sports Complex and spent a week with them. And they also played the Rams in the preseason. In the AFC, Chargers beat both of these teams on the road. So, if you're a Chargers fan, does it sting more the fact that you're not in the tournament, or does it give you hope that, hey, we can hang with all of these guys in the NFL?
That's a great question. For me, I'm going to say it stings a little bit because I think it just shows you how wide open this year was. But I think we said this last week going into the divisional round, it's not as easy as, they knocked off the Bengals in Cincy and knocked off the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Remember that first game, had they beat or tied the Raiders, would have been against Buffalo. And Josh Allen just looked like a man possessed this postseason and someone who was not going to be denied. And I'm sure we can get into it, but if the overtime rules were a little bit different or that coin flip lands on tails instead of heads, I think we'd probably be talking about Buffalo.
What are we doing with the overtime rules, Money?
I think that's what look, for me, I have held this, and I talked about it after the Thursday night game, and we said it, to some degree, we hinted to it on the air. We didn't want to be defeatist in case it didn't go the Chargers' way. But on that Thursday night contest against the Chiefs, when it went into overtime, we said, man, this coin flip is critical. Off the year, we said whoever wins this coin toss is going to win this game. These offenses are they're operating at too high and a level right now. The defenses are gassed. So they're not settling for field goals. The team, the Chargers win, they're going to win this game. The Chiefs win the coin toss, they're going to win this game. So you just have to equal it out. So many people are making the analogy. I'll just repeat it because I think it makes the most sense. When baseball goes into extra innings, one team doesn't get to hit and the other team gets to pitch. And if the team scores a run at the top of the inning, the game is over. That's essentially what football is. You can't do that. Just equate it. They did it with the field goal already. Just ensure that both offenses get a possession. That's all you got to do. And that's fine. Maybe the coin flip determines whether or not you want the ball first or second. And if you win the coin toss, you can decide, let's play defense. Let's see if we can hold them, get a punt. If they score, we'll get the ball back anyway. I would assume that's the way it would probably operate. And then that way, I guess the coin toss still sticks around. You got to figure out a way who's going to start it. So that's all I would do.
Yeah.
I wanted to see Josh Allen get that football. And if the Bills had won the coin toss, I absolutely would have wanted to see Patrick Mahomes get the football in overtime as well.
There's so much intrigue around these games. Just imagine if you add another layer to it in overtime where both teams get a possession. And then, you know what, worry about what happens when both teams score a touchdown later. Maybe it's just like, okay, now you have to go for two, or there's something that makes the game a little bit shorter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, look, I think college has got it figured out. I know it doesn't really look a lot like football because you're starting in the red zone, but at the same time, it's exciting. It's great. And we all know there's a reason why there's a statistic, red zone touchdown percentage, because it's the hardest place to operate because the field shrinks, your windows are tighter, your execution has to be better. So I think, to me, like, college has it right. You don't have to go for two on the first possession, but you do every one after that if you score. And I find it to be the most equitable. It's not easy. I think what people don't realize, is the reason why overtime is the way it is because the NFL and their television partners are so desperate to get it to fit into that 3-hour window. The way that Sunday lays out is they want 10-1, 1-4, 5:20 as your prime time. Go get your get. Just think of it in East Coast terms. I know it's tougher for us on the West, but you start these games at 1, the second one start at 4. As soon as those end, you go have your dinner for an hour and a half, and then
watch
you got
60
your post-dinner
minutes.
prime time. Exactly. Watch 60 minutes. Then you got your prime time football. So that's the way this is lined up and what they want. And when you start messing with overtime and games can extend to 8, 10 overtimes like they do in college from time to time, that blows their window up and it throws the networks off.
The AFC, Mahomes, Herbert, Allen, Burrow, Lamar.
Yeah.
Dude, we are set up the next decade plus with just some wild playoffs and some epic games to come just with those 5 young quarterbacks. And who knows who else is coming into the division, Money. We'll get to that in a minute. But just the fact that we have so many young quarterbacks, the Chargers fans should be very lucky, I would say, to know that you have a guy like Herbert that can go into these environments and go toe to toe with the Mahomes or Allen. Because if you don't have one of those guys, it's not looking good for you in January.
No. And I think it's also, look, I know nobody wants to say his name, but we're leaving out Deshaun Watson. He's in the AFC. He's 26 years old. So, when you add him to the mix, if he gets traded to Miami or if he stays in the AFC or if things get resolved in Houston, however that may go, I mean, there's another one. And he's in the conversation as the most talented.
Listen, I'm not pouring dirt on Trevor Lawrence either. The Jaguars organization has a ways to go, but that kid is good.
And look, you know me, we've had these conversations repeatedly on this podcast for years now. I'm a big Tua guy. I believe in Tua. I still believe in him. I think that he got a raw deal. Like, I don't think people realize what a mess that place was offensively last year with Chan Gailey, and this year with no offensive coordinator. They didn't have one. They had 2 guys that would alternate calling plays. And he had the hip injury last year. I think writing him off is a huge mistake, especially with the rumors that are out there as we're recording this podcast, that Brian Daboll is leaning toward taking the Miami job as opposed to the New York job, which reportedly is his if he wants it. But Miami, I guess, is really putting on the push to get him down there. You've seen what he's been able to do in mentoring and developing Josh Allen. Now that's the guy calling plays instead of Chan Gailey and 2 dudes this past year. Look out for Miami and Tua as well.
I mean, listen, I go down the line too. Like, I know the Jets have historically not been good, but I think they have some confidence in Zach Wilson in his second year coming in here. So, like, Mac Jones, we didn't even talk about Mac Jones and the Patriots. Look, the AFC is loaded.
Stacked.
And the fact that we are going through this coaching search around the league, and there's more openings than there's ever been. As we tape this, I believe Nathaniel Hackett is now the new head coach of the Denver Broncos. What does that mean for the division?
Well, Jordan Schultz was the first one I saw posted on Twitter, and he I don't want to put words in his mouth, but to me, like, the way I interpret it was, he's like, hey, this is happening. This is and it was before Hackett got hired. Now, maybe he was just kind of connecting the dots, but he's like, rumors are it's going to be Hackett. He and Rodgers are very close. Devontae does not want the franchise tag. He wants to follow Rodgers. Rodgers wants to go to Denver. So if you're trying to put that puzzle together. And reportedly, that was the team that was most closely associated with Aaron at the draft last year, right? And they just, for whatever, Schlereth even went on the record and said, hey, I've been told this is happening. And you would assume, Mark's got an in with the Broncos. I mean, my goodness, he's one of their best players and won Super Bowls there. So, I don't think he would just throw that out there for the heck of it. Certainly there was some heat on that. So now you put that together and you got Aaron Rodgers with that group of offensive weapons. That I think the one thing that's interesting about the Broncos that people should not overlook before they get all freaked out about, just make them a Super Bowl favorite because Aaron Rodgers is going to have Cortland Sutton and all these players, that are exceptional on the outside. Jerry Jeudy probably have to be anyway. I don't want to get too deep into that, but my point is Vic Fangio is arguably the best defensive coach in the league. So you're losing that. You are losing arguably the best, not Bill Belichick, defensive play caller in the NFL. And what really made that was what that team's success was really built upon. They have nice pieces on offense, don't get me wrong, but defensively, man, they were a load to contend with. Just look at the numbers. Year in, year out, since that guy, game in, game out, since Vic was the head coach, they've been exceptional. So you're losing that, and I don't know who Nathaniel Hackett's going to hire to be his DC, but I can tell you right now, whomever it is not going to be the level of Vic Fangio. So they're going to take a step back on that side. But if bringing in Hackett is the way to get Rodgers and Devontae Adams to go with Cortland Sutton, okay, I guess I kind of understand why you roll the dice there.
And then in Las Vegas, we don't know what's going to happen there. Is it Harbaugh? Is it another candidate that we're not talking about right now? And is Derek Carr going to be the quarterback for the Raiders? Is he in the plans of the future administration in Vegas? So the division right now, Money, I mean, the Chargers, I look around, we talked about all the quarterbacks, right? You got your guy. It's just makes it that much more important this offseason to build around him and make this team as complete as possible, because despite what happened this year, I mean, Justin had one of the best seasons you could have as a quarterback, and they didn't make the playoffs.
Look, and next year, I don't know how deep into the weeds the people like to get here, but next year's not going to be easy. We already went through what the AFC West looks like, right? And, obviously the Raiders were able to knock them off in the final week to punch their ticket to the playoffs and keep the Chargers out. So they're not going to look, I don't think they'll look much different. I think they're going to be very, very similar. I think, I don't know, if Jim Harbaugh comes in, he may want to, build it like he built San Francisco and, kind of get that power run attack, that he has had everywhere he's been, from San Diego to Stanford to San Francisco to Michigan. And it looks a little different with a more mobile quarterback like he had. So, but let's just assume it stays similar. So the AFC West is going to be tough. They got to play the NFC West. They had 3 teams in the playoffs. And a Seattle team that just seemed to lose its way, and you don't anticipate that happening for another season. So, whether it was injury or just all the offseason weirdness that they had. So you've got to play the 2 teams that are in the NFC Championship right now. You've got to play one of the teams that are in the AFC Championship and the Chiefs twice. And you got to play the Cardinals, who were 7-0, 10-1 at one point last season, and try to contend with Kyler Murray. On top of that, you have the Colts that were eliminated in the last week. You have the Browns. We know what that looked like last year when you were down 17 in the third quarter and had to score, a 41-point fourth quarter. So, and the Titans, who were the number 1 seed in the AFC, like it's going to be a nasty slate next year. So and I'm just bringing that up because, as you said, there's no time for missteps in the offseason. Free agents of yours, drafts, this team has got to get better. As good as they were this year, the tight games they lost, the Chargers have got to get better if they're going to get back to 9-8, 10-7, 11-6, and try to make the postseason.
And it starts with this draft evaluation process. So one of the first stops there is a game you're going to be calling this weekend. What have practices been like at the Rose Bowl this week for the NFLPA game?
Yeah, it's been great. I don't think it's certainly the first of 3, right? So we have the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl on NFL Network this weekend at 3 at the Rose Bowl, 3 Pacific. Next week you'll have the East-West Shrine game, and then you'll have the Senior Bowl. I think we all know the Senior Bowl. We've heard stories that have come out of the Senior Bowl. Think about Mac Jones last year. That was kind of really his big coming out party was how impressed the coaches were with Mac Jones at the Senior Bowl that week of practices. So that having been said, the Collegiate Bowl the last 2 years has put 139 players on NFL rosters. So with practice squads expanding to 16 and with depth being more important than ever, we saw it repeatedly this past year, right? Now, I'm not saying I'm hopeful. I think we're all hopeful that the COVID concerns are going to dissipate by the time the NFL season gets started in 2022. But at the same time, these are players that have contributed. Names that you'll know, like this weekend, right? L'Jarius Sneed for the Chiefs and Samson Ebukam for the 49ers. They're playing. These are Collegiate Bowl guys. So it's certainly something that you want to keep your eye on. There's a couple players. I got my board sitting here right next to me that have raised their hands just in watching the two practices. Sam Williams, a defensive end from Ole Miss. I'm trying to connect the dots and figure out what's going on there, because he just looks like someone who I would have assumed would be at the Senior Bowl. I mean, he had 12 and a half sacks in the SEC. He's a first-team All-SEC guy. You see him walk around. I was watching him yesterday after practice was over, takes his pads off. He's walking around with his shirt off. I'm like, my God, this guy's probably 6'4", 6'5", with a 6'9" wingspan, just flying off the end during practice. So that's a name to keep an eye on. Chris Brooks, who's a defensive tackle for Cincinnati, who had a huge conference championship game to punch their ticket into the playoff and played really well in the first half against Georgia, is out there. Josh Ross, who led Michigan in tackles at the linebacker position in both the Big Ten championship and their playoff game against Alabama was Cincinnati, against Georgia was Michigan. He's out there. There's a couple receivers that are really good looking. Their names are escaping me right now. My apologies. There's 150 of these kids out there, but there's a kid from number 80 from Appy State that looks really good. And then there is a receiver from Pitt who's got a lot of juice out there. And I really like the running back out of Oregon State. BJ Baylor looked really good yesterday. So there's a few names to throw out there. Pac-12 fans, they'll recognize some players. Chase Garbers, the quarterback from CDM here in Newport.
Oh, yeah.
His brother Ethan transferred from Washington to UCLA this past offseason. He quarterbacked Cal for the last few years, just actually beat up on USC in their final game. So he'll be out there quarterbacking. Max Borghi from Washington State, really good, big physical runner, will be out there as well. So there's a handful. There's a nice name salad for you, Chris.
That Matt Money Smith on the call. What's the tune-in information for that? What time's that at?
3 p.m. Pacific. NFL Network. We'll get started at 3. And, they've been doing hits all week at practice. I'll probably have a hit run later today on Total Access. I'll be out there with Bucky Brooks, who does Move the Sticks with, our color analyst, DJ. So he and Bucky do it together. Great podcast. And that's definitely a must subscribe, especially now during draft season. You're going to want to get up to speed on all the stuff that they're talking about and the players that we hope the Chargers are, zeroing in on with their number 17 overall pick in the first round, and what looks to be, a pretty hefty number of selections they'll have with the compensatories that are about to get awarded. So Bears keeping an eye on. So I'll be doing it with Bucky, Mike Yam, and Taylor Bisciotti going to be on the sidelines down there. So ought to be a great time. It'll be 3 p.m. on Saturday on NFL Network.
And the NFL season never stops. I mean,
nope.
We talk about the 11 picks the Chargers have. Who knows if you're going to trade those or move up, free agency, conference championships. I want to ask you about conference championships. Next segment, I did this with some of the beat writers on CBS, and we did it on the final drive. Just, it's kind of, Chargers award season. I want the monies, maybe like the first annual money awards, right? Where we talk about best MVP outside Justin Herbert, best play, best game. But I want to end this segment on just championship weekend. What do you think? Niners, Rams. Niners have had the Rams number. And then we saw Cincinnati beat Kansas City later in the year, but now they got to flip it to Arrowhead in the high stakes game where Kansas City's got a little bit more experience. Yeah,
I really thought the Bills were going to win that game. And they should have.
How fun would it have been to have Cincinnati and Buffalo, two fan bases? Like the parking lots alone would have
ridiculous. Been it's still hard for me to process the Kansas City tied that game with 13 seconds left. But it speaks, and which is why you just can't pick against them, right? It speaks to when the chips are down, that guy is going to make a play. Patrick Mahomes is just a wizard. So I think it's foolish to take Cincinnati. At the same time, I think it's going to look a lot like it did in the Bills game. I really do. I think this is just going to be offensive explosion. You can't stop us. We can't stop you. Let's figure out how this thing shakes out at the end of 60 minutes. And we saw it, like you said, it's not like that game was meaningless. The Chiefs were still in the mix for the number 1 overall seed. Cincinnati was fighting for the division title, and it was a heavyweight fight. And it came down to, drafting a kicker in the 5th round, old Evan McPherson, fearless,
that guy
booting it through for the game winner. So I think it's crazy to think the Chiefs are just going to rout the Bengals and that the true AFC championship was between them and the Bills. I think it's going to be a tight contest, but like I said, I think it's crazy to pick against Mahomes after what we see from him game in and game out. The Rams-Niners one that's a tough one. I wanted to take the Rams over the Bucks, but I was like, I just don't trust them. There's something about, and I don't know, and maybe now I do trust them a little bit more because, man, that front is, that thing is nasty. It seems like Von Miller was just kind of biding his time before he was just going to break the seal and get after it. Because he looks like a completely different player in the postseason. He looks like the Von Miller that won a Super Bowl in Denver. So to me, that front is just so hard, but I've said it, so I guess I'm going to probably stick by it. And that's Kyle Shanahan has got this power over his former assistants. He's got it over Matt LaFleur. He's got it over Sean McVay. It's just kind of like it's the old James Brown line, right? I taught them everything they know, but I didn't teach them everything I know. And it's like he's got this little something saved for him every single time they face. I hear people say it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. Well, it's hard to beat them 7 times in a row, but it's also hard to beat them 6 times in a row. And that's what the 49ers have managed to do. So I think I hate doing it.
It's the health of the quarterback, man. I think
I know
Garoppolo had a shoulder.
How do you pick Garoppolo, right? How do you pick it? How do you pick that team with that guy at quarterback? It's just that's the tough thing.
I go back to what you said about Kyle, though. I think he's going to have something for him in terms of maybe a Trey Lance package. You know what? They should have a Trent Williams package. I'm not even joking. That dude,
that pull he had on that when he
athletic guy on the team.
Ridiculous.
He get him a goal line package because who's tackling him?
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
It's versus Von Miller.
There you go. Well, shoot. You're talking about probably 60 pounds in Trent Williams' favor. I think him versus Aaron Donald would be the fair fight. I don't know if Von stands a chance against Trent if he's got the ball in his hand and he's just lowering his shoulder. But I hate doing it. I'd like to take the Rams. Just, I would love to see, after dealing with Detroit for a decade plus, for Matthew Stafford to kind of have this sort of, by all accounts, he seems like a great guy. And someone who's really just kind of put his head down and tried to stay loyal to Detroit and all that losing for all those years. So I'd love to see him get, all the spoils that he probably deserves with his talent. But man, I just can't get Kyle Shanahan standing on that sideline looking at Sean McVay just laughing out of my head. So I guess I'll go a rematch, right? I'll go a rematch of 2019 49ers Chiefs.
People were saying if that happens, it was like COVID never happened, right? It's like right before COVID, right. And then it kind of ends.
Funny.
It's like comes full circle.
I like it. I like it. There we go. Now I feel good about it.
Yeah.
How about you? Right. What do you got?
I have, heart versus head, right? Like I would love to see Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl.
So would I.
I'd love to see the Cincinnati Bengals, just being out there. We were both out there. That city's starving for a winner. And the fact that they got 1, then 2 playoff wins. I don't see Kansas City losing at home, especially against a team that got their quarterback sacked 9 times the week before, with Chris Jones coming at you.
A little hard.
It's a little hard. So, I agree with you. I think it's going to be San Francisco, Kansas City. And it would not surprise me because the Rams have played well and they got on a tear. Starting towards the end of the year, they did stub their toe against the Niners, but to beat the Cardinals the way they did and to really dominate the Bucs for a majority of that game. But you're right. Kyle Shanahan is the X factor here. And we'll see what happens on Sunday at SoFi because, Niners Nation is going to show up too. They're going to be in the house. And,
no doubt.
It's going to be an interesting, the fact that it's a division game in the conference championship, I think makes it
It's crazy.
Another level of entry because you know each other so well, right?
Oh God, do they? They absolutely do. I mean, especially like I said, there are a lot of the same players, that are out there doing it. It's not like there's been a lot of change. Obviously, Matthew Stafford's a huge difference, as is Von Miller. But Donald, Ramsey, they've been there for a year plus. Well, obviously Aaron Donald forever, but Ramsey's this is now his 2+ years. So he's seen the 49ers multiple times. They've seen him, but it's George Kittle, it's Debo, it's Garoppolo, it's whatever running backs back there. And most important, Nick Bosa and Armstead, it's Fred Warner. Like, it's all the same guys. Like, yeah, well, you know what we do. We know what you do. Let's see who executes it best. And that's who's going to win this game.
We'll see. It's got a lot to live up to. Tell you that after last weekend.
No doubt.
Let's take a quick break. We'll talk a little Chargers. All right, guys, a quick break to let you know that you can bolt up your experience just in time for the big game with $10 off your first 3 months of YouTube TV. You get access to 85 plus live TV channels, unlimited DVR space, and game day features like Key Plays. Just be sure to record the game and then use the Key Plays view right in the YouTube TV app. Catch up on all the highlights you may have missed. Plus, you can cancel at any time. No hidden fees. That's a touchdown. YouTube TV. Try 2 weeks free. Terms apply. Cancel anytime. All right, Monty, I mentioned we did this with the beat writers. Just wanted to get your thoughts on some of the things that happened this year. If you took Justin Herbert out of the equation, who's your team MVP?
It's tough. Look, like, to me, that's a really tough one. I think it's hard not to look at Austin Eckler. When you score that many touchdowns, when you can do it in that many different ways, rushing, receiving, he's an exceptional pass protector. He's in the conversation. And I think Derwin's in the conversation as well, obviously, not just, his performance, but in his penchant for making big plays, when you need them the most. I thought that was, I think those two come to mind, but believe it or not, I'm going to go Rashawn Slater.
Wow.
Just,
I like it.
I don't think people recognize how much different an offense is when you have someone on the left side of the offensive line that you don't have to worry about. You don't have to think about what's happening on that side. You can focus all your attention on the right side and your weakness there and trying to sort out, okay, how do we overcome this? It changes everything. And considering their offense was so much better than their defense this year, I think you would probably have to look on that side of the football. And then I start asking myself, okay, if you take Justin out, who's the second most important player that produced, a top 5 offense in almost every major category? And to me, it's Slater. I just think he had that exceptional of a year and was that important to what Joe Lombardi and Brandon Staley wanted to see happen on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I went with Corey Linsley, and I think it's 1 and 1A, right? I mean, the fact that Corey Linsley comes in and Justin develops in his second year and having a veteran presence, it's a good sign for the Chargers that there's 2 dudes on the offensive line right now that you don't have to worry about at the most critical positions, center and left tackle. Most improved player, who would you go with?
Ah, boy, that's all right. Let's see. Most improved. So I'm going through the position groups. Well, I don't know if I would go most improved, but I think it still fits into the category just because it was his first opportunity. It's Chenna.
That's what I said.
Yeah. So I think it's Chenna. That's going to be that's going to be a tough one, by the way. He's going to get a lot of teams coming after him. No doubt about it. And I think he is as important as any of their free agents to make sure he comes back. So he's so young and he's just getting started. I know the sack numbers aren't gaudy, but the pressures are, the quarterback hits are, the impact plays are. So yeah, to me, I'd go Chenna. All right, well, good. There we go. It's not, it does fit the category since you took him.
Yeah, well, it does fit the category because you said his first opportunity to start, I think he got better as the year went on and he showed up in the big games, right? That pick against the Chiefs on Thursday night. And you and I both talked about, he was the best player on the field at times in week 18. So Chargers going to have a decision to make with Chenna for sure. Best Justin Herbert play. You could come up with a million of them.
Well, I mean, look, it's going to be recency bias, but just take your pick, right? I mean, I would assume it's got to be 4th and 21 against the Raiders. You know, I mean, if you don't complete that pass, the season's over, and he throws a touchdown. You know, so to me, it's. I mean, or you could go with the 2-point conversion that you absolutely had to have. I mean, I think it's any. Look, there's a million plays, right? But to me, that just going back and watching that game is absurd. Those final 2 drives, the throws he's making, the pressure he's under. But to me, it'd have to be that one, 4th and 21, and you throw a touchdown to keep the season alive.
Yeah, I think some of the guys had the pass to Guyton in the Giants game.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Like that's a pass. Like I said it, and, you know, I don't know if anyone else can make that throw in the league.
Yeah.
Just how quickly he had to get that thing off with that much force and arm strength and the ability to do it while you're getting hit. You know, everything that Herbert possesses, size, strength, arm strength, quick release, all came into play on that one play. But to me, I guess I just have to consider the situation. And so you have the situation of 4th and 21. And if you don't complete it, your season's over. And that to me puts it over the top.
Jeff Miller had the 2-point conversion that he caught in Cincinnati too, just for fun, maybe, because I think it put it up 24-0 in Cincy, which is appropriate being its championship Sunday. Last one, Money, and this is more of a look ahead. Number one priority for the Chargers this offseason. What position group is the number one priority?
Well, gosh, I hate saying it, but there's a bunch of different ways you can go.
Yeah.
To me, like, honestly, I just said it, so I'll just take it off the board. But I think re-signing Chenna is because they're going to get a deal done for Derwin. I have no doubt about that. So to me, I don't even have a second thought about that. So I would really like to see them get something done and keep Chenna. I think that's so important. It's so hard to find pass rushers, and he's a good one to run opposite Bosa moving forward. So if I take that out, I'd really like to see him get a number one corner. I'd like to see a big body on the outside. I think that helps fill a lot of issues. And I just think it's something that we've been looking for a long time. So that would probably be, because look, you can go right tackle. You see what happens when you have one weak spot. You have to change everything. So, get a league average right tackle. There's obviously the defensive line. And, Akeem Hicks's name has been thrown around a lot, someone of that level to help the interior of that line. There's a lot of ways you can go. But for me, I feel like if you can get a corner out there, a big bodied corner that can help in the run fits and in the run game. And also, in this division, Tyreek Hill and Cortland Sutton and, I told you the list of the players, the teams that the Chargers are going to face next season. I just feel like you really need, a big physical, legit corner out there to help out Michael Davis.
Man, sometimes, the podcast during the season is one thing, but we have so much to talk about this off season, and you have to get to the Rose Bowl right now
I'm headed up to practice.
NFLPA game. Yeah. So we'll have you covered. Next week, we'll do a little Senior Bowl preview, get you ready for that big game. For Matt Money Smith, I'm Chris Hayre. This has been Chargers Weekly, powered by YouTube TV.